Hey everyone, this is Aspen Young, and I'm arguing against the statement that the US drone program should be discontinued. First of all, international counterterrorism efforts and allies are strengthened and supported by the drone program because the US's allies rely on the drones and the data that they collect. The US has done quite a bit of development in their drones, and a lot of countries don't have their own, so they actually pay the US to use theirs. So if the drone program were to be discontinued, counterterrorism efforts would crumble along with alliances. Next is national security. The drone program plays a crucial role in strengthening national security by identifying and eliminating terrorist efforts before they reach US soil. Several studies have found that at least one drone strike is associated with approximately 7.25 fewer terrorist attacks and 34 fewer deaths per year. This equates to a 45% decrease in terrorist attacks and a 77% decrease in deaths from terrorism per year. What's the threat? There's a definite threat. I mean, think of how many times the same people who say death to America have attacked Israel. Future attacks like the one Ukraine did on Russia could happen to the US. The context behind this is when Ukraine had put small drones inside of trucks that were going to Russia and were able to remotely communicate with them to destroy millions and millions of dollars worth of Russian military equipment. So if those out there who see the US as an enemy find a way to attack the US with a relatively cheap, under $1,000 drone, we need to be able to defend our country, and not just with super expensive missiles that are not effective. We need to acknowledge that the future is here. If our nation doesn't have small drones to protect against other small drones, we will become the victims. Third, decrease risk and casualties for both military and civilian. The drone program accomplishes this through both strategy and accuracy. There are less casualties than actual boots-on-the-ground warfare for both soldiers and civilians. Casualties are reducing as the drones are getting more and more accurate. And drones can go specifically to a target and eliminate it and avoid war and attacks the target itself was going to inflict. Common counter-arguments include casualties, specifically civilian casualties, which are getting fewer and fewer and fewer as drones are getting more advanced capabilities. Next up, anti-American sentiment. Critics argue that the drone program incites anti-American sentiment when really studies have shown that the drone program disrupts more organized plots than incites them. Next up is the psychological impact on local populations. The argument there is that constant surveillance and the sound of drones in the sky have long-term mental health effects, the concern being that people living under drone threat experience chronic fear, anxiety, and trauma. First rebuttal to this is that that is actually less than actual warfare, the sounds of bombs, troops, actual trauma. And secondly, no one is actually being constantly surveyed by drones. Lastly is the ethical and moral concerns. The argument there being that the drone program dehumanizes warfare. The concern being that removed decision makers will be more willing to use lethal force when there's no risk to US personnel. The first rebuttal to this is that dehumanizing warfare or removing human lives from warfare actually seems more preferable. It then becomes a battle of money instead of blood. A $1,000 drone taking out millions of dollars in enemy equipment, for example. Second off, drone warfare is more about collecting information and destroying equipment. Lethal force is only applied to specific targets. Lastly, is effectiveness. Smaller, faster, cheaper, better. Effectiveness is the whole point of technological advancement. You do not want to be left behind in the past while others are developing smaller, cheaper, and faster technology. We need to be able to keep up and not give up. That is why the US should not discontinue the drone program.